make sure that you follow me as well. I wish I was coming back or restarting the show with better news, or rather less frustrating or less outrageous news. But the most important news topic that we all need to care about and we all need to be discussing is, of course, what is unfolding in the national capital in terms of the air quality. It has almost become an annual phenomena where the air quality in the national capital and the national capital region drops to the severe or the extremely severe or the hazardous category in terms of the AQI or the air quality index. In fact, on the morning after Diwali, many areas in the Delhi NCR region recorded an AQI of 499, almost 500. And remember, 500 is the extent of measurement of the AQI, and that is how horrible the situation has sort of gotten in the national capital region when it comes to the air quality. It is no longer just an air pollution issue or an air quality crisis. It's almost become a public health emergency. Many experts on the matter are calling it a crime against humanity. No person, no resident of a city should be subjected to air quality like this. And I feel like I don't even need to mention the kind of health impacts this is having or going to have on people, not to mention the elderly, the children, and those already suffering from respiratory issues. And of course, we're going to talk about and discuss the reasons for this situation and the reasons for why the air quality has dipped or continues to dip to such an extent. But before that, let me quickly introduce our guest who's joining us on the program today. Ruhi Kumar is, of course, has joined us in the past. She is an independent climate strategist. Thank you so much, Ruhi, for taking out time and joining me on the program once again. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Priyata. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, Ruhi, before we actually start talking about the reasons uh, for why the air quality has worsened to such an extent and why it continues to worsen year after year instead of actually getting better, I do want to get your first thoughts on why do you think we've sort of reached this situation? Why are we here? Why are we talking about this year after year after year? Why are we in this situation?
I think we are in this situation mainly because there is no long term planning and understanding of the problem from the root cause. There is a knee jerk reaction that happens every single year. And it's a very PR led activity every
Hmm.
year that happens, that it hits the news that NCR is the most polluted region in the world, crosses Beijing, top 10 cities, top 13 to 14 cities out of 20, every WHO report, blah, 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 all this happens. And yeah, there are some committees set up. There is union governments, state governments, other governments blaming each other. They wait for 15 days, and then the air quality goes from very severe to severe, and that's apparently something to celebrate. And yeah, I mean, then people just go back to sort of, experiencing the same air every day without real clear interventions. There are attempts, but they are very they're coming from a very shallow space. And I
Hmm.
think this problem has been brewing for over a decade. It's just
Hmm.
now that we can see that how intense it can get because of density of population and the kind of sources of pollution that NCR region as a whole is experiencing. And it's not just NCR. NCR tends to get the mileage because it's capital. It's the entire northern India belt, what is
Yeah.
called as the Indo-Gangetic Plain, IGP. And if you speak to any air pollution campaigners or clean air campaigners, IGP is like a very common term they use, only because, and I'm explaining
Hmm.
for the benefit of the viewers, because to be aware that just because you're in Delhi and you're outside Delhi doesn't really change much in the air. All of the northern India belt is going to be polluted through the winter and even throughout the year. It's just that how the media focuses on it in winters, and around November and Jan is different from, like,
Yeah,
for example,
yeah,
in May
because it
or
gets a
June.
little bit worse or a lot worse. But yes, like
Yeah,
you said, the air quality is very severe or severely bad throughout the year.
it is. I mean, the WHO standard is 60 for AQI. We are never at 60 in NCR. Give me one day that you can claim that.
I don't think we've been under 100 in a long, long time, in many, many years.
Exactly. 100, 200 is normal. 250 is still like, okay, maybe slightly bad day. And then people are programmed to understand that 300 mehi, you should make some,
Hmm.
noise. So I
Hmm.
feel like it's changing. They're trying to condition people in believing that less severe days are okay to have.
Hmm.
And by they, I mean pretty much every authority and even private industry that is involved in any sort of emission activity. I am
Yeah.
going to just call it out and say that this is just co-created. It is not
Yeah.
something that is, oh, okay, only, because, I mean, as we go forward, we will discuss different sources, but just to put it out there that it's a long-term problem and it has been brewing for a while, and now when it's actually like taking shape in this form, is people are running helter and skelter so that the governments don't get the blame. That's
Hmm.
basically it. Yeah.
Yeah. Many experts are now calling this a public health emergency. They're calling it a national calamity. They're calling it terms like crime against humanity is being thrown around. Not wrongly, I feel. Do you think that we have come to that situation where we need to treat this like a national calamity, like a public health emergency?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that word has come all the way from 2015, 16, actually, because just to give you a quick context, there's been a massive coalition that has been, mobilizing to put this word out there with the authorities, with the media. The media also didn't just pick up on public health crisis. There are lots of campaigners who have been at it since literally, I don't know if you remember the time Obama visited Delhi in 2016, I believe, on Republic Day. That's when it really picked up because a bunch of us, working in, it was in Greenpeace India and other organizations, we had actually started this campaign around the time of his visit, because
Mm,
until then there was data available, yes, with
yeah,
CPCB and Delhi pollution control boards, but it was not being publicized as much because
yeah.
people were still
It
in
was
this
not
like
being given
fog,
that
smog.
focus
No,
that
yeah.
it needed.
Correct. And
Yeah.
then it just sort of took a shape, and then now there's so many organizations that are working on clean air, rightly
Yeah,
so. But
because international media picked it up.
yeah, and there was a, and even for international media to pick up, they need the right kind of direction, data, photos, information, right? A lot of RTIs were filed
Mm,
constantly by a lot of these think tanks and NGOs, which are often deemed as like international, foreign, or stalling development, but actually they're
mm,
working on people's well-being and health along with the
mm,
Indian organizations, with the Indian people, right? Nobody is
mm,
like foreigner working on these campaigns. It's Indian citizens
mm,
working on it for our improvement of health. So the point I'm trying to make is basically that I think it has become a big deal only because there's been a lot of push, and it is sort of at a point where public health crisis is necessary to use, because that's only how the politicians, the bureaucrats will start noticing that it is going to impact everything from their GDP, the productivity, and even voting. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, everybody's been talking about, a lot of people have been, not everybody, have been talking about election issues and clean air, but it's still not registered as much as it should have. But I think
Yeah.
it's getting there. I mean, like if you're
It
breathing,
needs to. It needs
yeah,
to. Absolutely.
exactly. I
And
mean, think about
unfortunately, I
this.
feel like the people who have taken part in our poll today, because 62% of people actually are saying that this is not a public health emergency. I think these are the people who are not actually living in the Delhi NCR region, because people who are
Possible.
living there
Yeah.
know that it is nothing short of a public health emergency. I have lived in Delhi myself
Yeah.
for 9
Same
years.
here.
Now, of course, I am in Kolkata,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
have lived in Delhi for 9 years, and I know how bad the situation has gotten over the last 1 decade. And Rohi, we need to come to, of course, the reasons for it. And like you and me were talking about the fact that it is, of course, a cocktail of factors that has led
Yes.
to this situation. It is, of course, stubble burning is a major issue, vehicular pollution, construction, all kinds of things.
Thermal power plant
Apart,
emissions.
yeah, emissions. Then, of course, there are geographical factors. There are, climate issues as well. Uh, if you could just talk about what are the major factors that lead to this now becoming an annual phenomena, at least at these November, October, these months.
Yeah.
Why does the situation get to this point during these months?
See, I think it's one of the main things is obviously the location of the Indo-Gangetic belt, right? In the sense of that, what happens to the wind movement in the winters or early winters, right? There is very limited wind movement in that region. So what could have been like, wind blowing and taking all the pollutants away from that region, that does not happen because of the sheer location of this entire, all these cities, right? Or the states. And if we already know this, because there is no other way out from it, like you can't do anything about the location or the climatic conditions, right, which are more geographical or meteorological, then
Yeah.
we should be so prepared that we need to start preparing almost a year in advance on how to stop next year's pollution crisis, right? And the sources, what you mentioned, the four big ones are definitely dust construction, biomass burning, which includes stubble as well, and industrial pollution and vehicular pollution, right? These are four major ones, and then there are, of course, subcategories in industrial. There is cement, steel, power plants, and all of that. And biomass, there is garbage burning as well is a big problem. That
Yeah.
the waste management nobody talks about so much. Only when like Ghazipur or Tughlaqabad catches fire, right? Those big piles of garbage, which are I think also reported as tall as Taj Mahal, and
Yeah.
they emit methane very
Yeah.
regularly. So
Yeah.
that's not something that's only happening in winter. And methane is one of the most dangerous greenhouse gases, right? And pollutants. So,
Yeah.
and stubble definitely is a factor, but then again, there is a whole different lens to look at stubble burning, because the blame game goes on between farmers, and then, these machines are not being taken up. This government came out with that subsidy, but that did not work. So if nothing is working, then isn't it time to go back to the drawing board and understand why is it not working? What do the farmers want? Why are they burning stubble very late into October? Because there is a monsoon season that is now stretched because of climate change,
Yeah.
right? There are so many reasons for this. And of course, I mean, I don't want
Yeah,
to get into
there are
technical.
conversations about changing the whole harvest season. I mean, that makes no sense.
No, so those conversations will happen with the farmers when there is a wider understanding that what is not working in terms of harvesting, yielding, and because even the farmers are suffering on the other end with extreme weather events, right? It's not like they are doing this like because they really want to see the pollution and the air
Yeah,
quality
obviously.
dip. Yeah, but that's
Obviously.
the narrative everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
put out, that you are supporting farmers, you are against the farmers. I'm like, but the point is very simple, that if nothing is working despite providing these subsidies, and the central government and the state governments literally blaming each other every single day, ki what you did not work, you spent so much money, then isn't it your responsibility as the government servants to go and talk to the farmers, talk to the people, that why is it not working? And there are ample number of committees that have come up. There are ample number of policies that are already in place. There is National Clean Air Action Plan. There is GRAP. There is the Winter Pollution Plan. There is the airshed three-state trio thing that had taken place last year. There is there's just a lot of committees that are set up time and again. But if the committee leads to some resolution, great, but it's clearly not, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that there are multiple factors. And in terms of sources, I would also like to add that because stubble becomes a visible source in this peak, episodic peak, right?
Yeah.
We call it an episodic peak because it's an episode of like those 20 days that spikes the PM levels, right? But there are other sources still ongoing through the year. So
Through the,
that
yeah.
mixed with
Yeah.
this, mixed with whatever seasonal stuff is coming, becomes extremely like that dangerous cocktail. So if you
Yeah.
want to have
So
preventative
stubble
measures,
burning cannot be the only,
no,
factor that you're dealing with and not
no.
dealing with the rest of them for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you need a multi-dimensional whatever solution, which will go trickling hand in hand with the others, and you're not going to get a solution over 1 year. You might crack something in one source 1 year, you might not be able to do it. I mean, Beijing had this entire, when they were going through their peak, they still get polluted, but they had a massive overhaul of relocating their power plants from the city boundaries to really outside, because that was really getting the air, polluted air inside the city, right? And they had a massive campaign, and we know in China you can't do a lot of mobilization. Despite that, they were able to mobilize citizens and like policymakers and make them see that what it's doing to their population and the demographic.
Yeah.
And similarly in Delhi, I feel that's not just in Delhi, northern India, that's the approach required. Otherwise, I don't think people are
Yeah,
really
but is
serious about
that
it.
that's the thing. So is that mobilization something that is lacking?
I don't think the mobilization is lacking. I think now it's pretty clear that it is
Like,
a big
why
issue.
is it that after, I mean, year after year after year, like, why is it that we seem to find ourselves in the same position?
That's because, Priyata, if the solutions
Why
are
is,
not,
yeah.
if they are not holistic, then you are basically doing a band-aid solution, right? So if the solution approach is not holistic, then every year it will be the same thing, and then you'll come with a committee and you will say, ki, oh, we're really serious about it, and in
Hmm.
15 days the air quality will get better. That is naturally going to happen,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But the exposure to the population and people's lungs has already happened. In
Yeah.
fact, there are doctors, and you can check these reports online. There are lots of organizations like Lung Care Foundation who work specifically with doctors, and they can tell you that long-term exposure to anything over certain PM
Hmm. Hmm.
AQI is going to be hazardous for the people in short and long term. So you don't need to
Yeah.
just live through Delhi in winter season. Living in NCR, Northern India, with a specific AQI, which is actually way below 300 also, by the way,
Yeah.
can get you into a serious health hazard situation, and that has happened. If you have bad lungs, every other ailment in your body is going to get amplified. There were even studies done during COVID, right? The relationship between COVID impact and reduced lung quality,
Hmm.
sorry, lung function, because
Hmm.
people were living in polluted regions. So it
Hmm.
is it is a thing that encompasses all your health, right?
Hmm.
It's about
Hmm.
breathing, it's about lungs. So I
Hmm.
think there is, you can say that nothing comes out of it every year, but to actually see an overall change, a holistic approach is required, and then something might happen in the next 3-4 years. It's not
Yeah.
going to be something you visibly see over a season, right?
Yeah.
But that holistic approach is required. Otherwise, it's just going to be like, yay, sabki isko ban kar do, usko ban kar do. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not
Like,
workable, right?
exactly, just stopgap measures, like you said. And
Yeah, it's band aid.
that's what we have been doing year after year, and no long term planning and no long term intentions are actually materializing.
I mean, there are some things I would say, like they had started with odd and even, right? And then it had its own loopholes. So there were lots of solutions that governments had tried to propose on, like car-free days, better public transport. And it's
Yeah.
some of these things are actually happening in Delhi, whether it's the state government or the central government. They are putting these long-term, like, solutions in place. But what happens is that because the short-term stuff is really not dealt with, like because there are no more dialogues, and this requires a lot of people's participation from those stakeholders, and for the authorities to go and discuss with very openly, and it's not going
Exactly,
to happen over like
because
one
odd even
meeting.
the first time, or odd even when it happened for the first time, it actually worked.
Yeah,
But the second time, it did not. It did not have a lot of effect on the AQI. The first time it did. You could see a significant difference. The second time it did not. After which we just completely abandoned the plan altogether.
I mean, that's also because people started disbelieving the local state government, saying that, and people are also a little like, oh, we can just have two cars and take out whatever. So that sort of mentality also affects
Yeah,
these the actual implementation of the policies, right? So I feel, and that's where they try to deal with the private car industry and people who own those cars. And
yeah.
if you look at the air pollution problem, I mean, and you look at the disparity. The rich people in Delhi are buying their purifiers, their masks, I don't know what not they're buying to try to be safe inside their houses. But when you look at the more underprivileged pockets, which is like a lot of NCR Delhi, people who can't afford air purifiers, people who can't buy these N95 wall wala masks, then basically there is
Yeah.
nothing, there is no solution or even stopgap for them, right?
Yeah,
This is a
we've
very,
talked about this so many times, Ruhi, when
yeah,
the
inequity.
inequity when it comes to climate crisis, right?
Exactly, and same goes for pollution and health, because
Yes.
anybody living close to Ghazipur, the big tower of garbage, is constantly exposed to methane. So their lung capacity is very different from someone who lives in like South Delhi in a better environment in their, at least inside their house with the air purifier. So these things
Hmm.
are very real, and no matter what you do, the rich people are always trying to be, they're always going for the technical solution. I mean, the smog tower is one of the biggest jokes. If we can just really pinpoint to a solution that shouldn't have happened, there are ample number of researchers, air quality experts who have said that the smog tower is not going to work. But nobody actually paid heed to it, and now you've spent so much money putting the smog towers, right?
Yeah.
And what that money could have been used for, that's a different matter. But then you did end up putting it despite all the expert opinion, because you wanted to
Yeah.
show something that you're doing something about it, whether it's
Yeah.
the state government or the local government. I know there is a lot of politics in Delhi around it, but the point is that nobody leaves each other's throats just because there's something happening, right?
Yeah.
So they're not interested in
And I think
actually taking care of
I keep
people.
talking about this, and I keep bringing this up with various experts whenever we talk about any sort of issue that we are discussing. That there isn't enough dialogue between experts and the government when it comes to policy planning. You are not taking into account the expertise of the people who have dedicated their
I
lives.
wonder why.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering why.
Yeah, and it's just one of those very really strange things. You do not have a dearth of experts. Like you said, they've dedicated their lives on. You can go to IITs. You can go to the civil society movement. There are collectives now formed for clean air transformation, energy transition. There's just, you will find everywhere in for every city. In fact, there's this whole policy about national clean air plan that came out in 2018, was a long-term plan of how to deal with pollution in different cities, and it had some interesting points about like how other cities need, every city needs its own plan, so they will have stakeholder consultations with experts, civil society groups, and community members. And it started out well, but again, the thing about accountability, how, where is the money going, is it actually in place? So a lot of organizations are working very hard to make these clean air plans for even tier 2, tier 3
Yeah.
metro cities, all of it. But there needs to be more done to express that the actual work is being done and experts are being consulted in these kind of severe situations as well, because you
Yeah.
are spending big amount of money in trying to literally defame the other governments, and just
Yeah.
it's such a waste of time and
It is,
resources,
and I feel that in circumstances like these, citizens' mobilization works the best. Nothing else is going to motivate our elected representatives more than people actually, you know, getting
yeah,
down
yeah, yeah. And
on the ground and actually demanding accountability and demanding transparency in terms of what elected representatives are doing to ensure that citizens and residents get clean air. That is just, it's so basic. It
no,
is so basic.
absolutely, which is
It's a
why
basic
I
human right and something that we
correct.
can't provide in our national capital.
No, it's just a joke. And honestly, I know people are tired of like taking the government officials, or I think it's the corporations as well. It's not just them. You need to take them to task, because at the end of the day, it is very exhausting and tiring. But there are lots of citizen groups. There are a lot of youth people groups, that are working. They actively organize climate strikes. They stand outside these Paryavaran bhavans, and the places of accountability, and they demand action. There are so many organizations. There's Youth for Climate India in Delhi. There is Fridays for Future India. There is Let India Breathe. There are so many organizations, warrior moms, that are doing such great work in terms of trying to mobilize people from different groups, right? But and they need support, and more people should be joining. Or if they don't want to join a group, make your own, because ultimately it's happening everywhere. And the
Yeah.
amount of money, emotional stress, that people experience. I have a niece who was on nebulizer every other day in Noida, and I'm sure this is the same situation with a lot of babies, right? So it is about ultimately that who is getting affected and how much. If little kids are on nebulizers, if elderly are nebulizers, and even adults are on nebulizers constantly, who's benefiting, right? Clearly the medical industry and people. It's, I mean, this is not done. You can't have your people be exposed to this level of pollution and expect them to go to work every day. The financial expenses are increasing, right? From insurance, health. Most people don't even have insurance. So the medical bills are increasing. The emotional stress on the parents. You can imagine any mother or father feeling so debilitated when their children are constantly coughing and wheezing. And themselves, I know friends who went for a brisk walk in the morning and they almost fainted because
Yeah,
the AQI is so
yeah,
bad. So,
yeah.
and obviously the reality
No,
is
I've
also, Priyata.
experienced this myself, and like you said, so have you.
Yeah, and the reality is that I see when people are so sick, they don't have the capacity to ask these questions because they themselves are like literally it's survival zone, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
firefighting every day. But then it is the responsibility of the larger society to understand that this cannot be okay. We can't be we are being punished for what? We are paying taxes, we are voting. What the hell is going on, right? Like it doesn't make any sense that despite, and rents are expensive, it's not like anything is being given in any subsidy manner. We are paying a lot of money for everything, but yet we
Yeah,
get to breathe this toxic polluted air every single day stuck in our lungs, and we don't know what to do about it. So
yeah,
it's clearly coming
yeah.
from that. I mean, you can also probably sense the rage in my voice, but that's because I'm so
No, I feel
frustrated.
it. I
Yeah.
feel it too. I mean, I'm right there with you when it comes to how I feel about this whole situation. I just quickly want to touch upon, something that is sort of blamed for this whole situation more than others, and that, of course, is paddy burning or paddy disposal. I was reading a lot about the reasons for, and I've been doing that for in my career for the last couple of years since this situation has only sort of deteriorated. And stubble burning is something that we continue to blame, and it is a very easy way out, right? Like you
Yeah.
said earlier in the conversation as well, that it's very easy to sort of just blame the farmers. What sort of alternatives do farmers have? Yes, we give some subsidy in buying these very very expensive instruments that would render stubble burning unnecessary, but the alternatives are very very expensive, and yes, giving a subsidy is still not going to help these farmers. They're going
Yeah.
to have to do what they have to do.
Yeah. No, it's not a straight answer. I have spoken to a lot of agriculture experts in the past who had very openly mentioned that the reality is that a lot of ways of agriculture have which are very corporate ways, seeded all the way 20, 30, 40 years back, have resulted into this form of this cycle of the way
Hmm.
harvesting is done. And this is a very long drawn conversation that needs to happen between those farmers and those agriculture experts and resilience agriculture. There is a whole field to that. This is dedicated, and there are lots of universities in Punjab, Haryana, this very region that are working to see what can be done better. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, it is not going to happen overnight. It is not going to happen without proper investment and funds in it, right? I mean, I think the subsidy thing, I always feel it's not just for stubble burning, right? It's for any problem. If you give people money or if you subsidize it, I think it's just a very temporary thing as well, because there is an entire system that is based on this sort of farming, right? Or
Hmm.
there's an entire cycle that is based. One has to really go and find different intervention points with the farmers to understand what else can be done. It's not possible that nothing else can be done, but these are going to be
Hmm.
very, 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 what is the word, meticulous but very important conversations, and they
Hmm.
cannot happen just because and Punjab is always called the villain, right? Like, oh, they are the ones who are polluting Delhi's air. That's actually not the right approach,
Not at
because
all.
even the
Hmm.
people of Punjab are suffering equally. It's not like Delhi ke log bahut zyada special hai. Yes, it's the capital, But again, like I said, the whole of NCR is constantly, the bureaucrats and politicians like to villainize other people, Haryana, Punjab, UP. But that is the wrong approach, right? And that is going to be counterproductive in a long-term dialogue to find solutions.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like,
Because
what does this mean? Ki wahan se ho
we're
raha hai?
all in this together. This entire region, like you said, it's not just the national capital region, but like you
Yeah.
said, the whole uh, northern India, the
Yeah,
Indo-Gangetic.
IGP. Yeah, Indo-Gangetic
Yeah,
Belt. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's to realize. I mean, you will realize within the next few weeks, Bihar, Patna, Agra, Varanasi, a lot of cities and towns in Punjab, the air quality will deteriorate. It will not hit the news. And
Hmm.
then people are going to be like, Delhi's air is better, so now we can just chill. No. What about all those millions of people and crores of people who are living in these states? Their lungs are not important. Like, what is this random sort of like elitist argument that goes on? So whenever I come on, I'm asked to speak about Delhi, I start with saying not just Delhi, just
Hmm.
like, let's like talk about the entire region. Like, air pollution, climate change doesn't know borders, doesn't understand who belongs where. It's just, it's a large crisis. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just no denying that. I think we should sort of end the conversation, on that note. And I would once again, like to encourage people to sort of mobilize when it comes to an issue like this, because we all sort of need to seek accountability. We need to seek transparency from our governments, from our elected representatives as to.
Regardless of which political party.
Absolutely, because we need to
Yeah.
know what they are doing, what their
Yeah.
short-term and long-term plans are when it comes to, uh, the air quality crisis in Delhi, because things
Yeah.
cannot get any worse than this. I mean,
Yeah.
it has, like they say, it has hit the fan. I mean, it's not going to get any worse than this, because we really, really need to seek accountability, and we need to gather and mobilize. And I guess it's time to take matters into our own hands, because I feel that our representatives do not have enough incentive to take this seriously, or they are not taking it seriously, or they're just sort of reaching out for stopgap, solutions. It
They need
needs
to be
to,
told off very, in
yeah.
the best and the worst
It needs
possible
to get
manner.
yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need to get serious about this. I mean, it cannot get worse than this. Thank you so much, Ruhi, for taking out time and joining me
Thank you.
on the discussion today. I really, really appreciate your time, and I hope that you, I don't think enjoyed would be the right word, but I hope that
Yeah.
you found this discussion, worth your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, to all of our viewers who took time and were a part of this conversation, thank you so much. Like I said in the beginning of the whole discussion, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also reach out to me on my social media handles. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach out if you have suggestions regarding the topics that we cover. And you will also get more information about these shows that we do 3 times in a week. We might in the future change the timing of the Inside Edition, but I will keep you in the loop and I will let you know. But as of now, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 2 p.m. And we will join you once again on Wednesday with another big topic of the week. Thank you so much to all of you for watching.